Oh, hello. There is some speed at which the jump to hyperspace will not look like stars streaking off into the distance. In fact, it will never look like that. But if you were to travel close enough to the speed of light to give yourself, it's live, a Lorenz factor of 1400. The Lorenz factor is kind of a measure of how much distance and time change and even mass or inertia change as you get closer and closer to the speed of light. With this Lorenz factor, if you were traveling at 0.99999, very important, 5 C, or 99.99995% the speed of light, you'd have a Lorenz factor of 1400, and what you would see is not these streaks of light. No, instead you would see a black hole right in front of you. And then around that you would see a layer of green. And around that you would see a layer of yellow. And around that, finally, a layer of red. And beyond that red, it would be nothingness, the void. This is because the cosmic microwave background radiation, the radiation left over, the glow from the Big Bang, would be blue shifted up into the visible light range as you were traveling through hyperspace on your ship. It's like bumps on a road. If there are a certain number of bumps on the road, and you go over them faster or slower, it will feel like there's more or less bumps on them. The same thing happens with light. When you hit rays of light faster or slower, if you approach them or recede from them, it can feel as though you're hitting more wavelengths in a certain amount of time, which shifts them up the electromagnetic spectrum. So this background radiation left over from the Big Bang would be shifted up into the visible range, and you would not see streaks, you would see this, a hyperspace rainbow. Kind of pretty, isn't it? Hello, and welcome to another edition of Because Science Live, the show where I take all of your questions live right here on this channel and these platforms and try to answer them off the top of my head to the best of my ability, because we get up to a lot of nerdy stuff on these channels, so why not try to do it impromptu and maybe mess up? Got Nate here. What we got?
From Scott Smith Castile.
Ooh.
How would luck manipulation powers like domino most likely work? Is this quantum probability manipulation or some other kind of force?
I think someone asked me something like this last week, but Domino is one of the new characters in Deadpool 2. She's not new, but new for the movies. And her power is luck. And I interpret that as her power is manipulating probabilities. And it doesn't seem like she's actively manipulating probabilities, like she points her hand at something and something changes. But if probability was warping around her, then it's actually really cool. The reason why something like a glass, if you drop it on the ground, the reason why it breaks but then it doesn't reform itself is because of entropy. And the universe as a whole favors more disorganized forms of energy than organized forms of energy. And to get a more organized form of energy from disorganized forms of energy, on average, would take so many chances, so many events that in the lifetime of the universe it won't happen. But if Domino could change those events, the frequency, the odds, the chances, then maybe things around her could behave in universally weird ways, like things reforming after being shattered. And I think that is a very, very cool superpower. And maybe she could be immortal, because if she could affect the way entropy affects other things, then our bodies, I once heard physicist Sean Carroll, who works at Caltech, put it this way: even though humans seem like organized things and the universe favors disorder, humans and life is a very efficient way of creating disorder. So we as organisms take in energy in the form of other life forms and disperse it in forms of heat and chemicals as we break it down. So life is actually a great way of following entropy's orders. So if Domino can work against entropy, maybe she could prevent maybe she could even go back in time. I don't know. Obviously, I would have to look into it, but her powers are awesome. I want a whole Domino movie. Quote me on that. What's next?
From Isaiah Ghost, is there something in the center of the universe, or is it just empty space?
The weird thing about the universe, among many odd things about the universe, is that even though pictures might make it seem one way or the other, there's no center. And because the universe is expanding out in all directions into nothingness, from nothingness, there's no real center to the universe as far as we know, as far as I know. I'm not an expert. But there's no real center. But at the same time, that means that any point in the universe could be considered the center of the universe as well. So you are the center of your own universe, and you're the center of nothing at the same time. It's kind of profound. Universe is weird. What's next?
From Scott Powers, would an asteroid have enough gravity for someone to walk on it?
Depends on this. To have enough surface gravity to walk on, the asteroid would have to be pretty massive. And I don't know, I couldn't do the surface gravity calculation off the top of my head. What I can say, and as I mentioned in a previous Because Science footnotes, is that because there is so little gravity on smaller asteroids, if the asteroid was just a this is gonna be good. If the asteroid was just a few kilometers across, and you were to stand on it, because it would necessarily have not that much gravity, its surface gravity, its escape velocity wouldn't be that much. And if that's the case, then if you want to get creative, but probably just the male audience here, then if you started peeing, it would reach escape velocity, go all the way around the asteroid, and you'd be peeing on your back. What were we talking about? Must have been this. What's next? Look at that. It'd be ridiculous. Aim low, or else it's gonna be.
From Josemina.
Oh, hey, Josemina.
What is ether and how does it work?
Ether?
What?
Aether? You mean A-E-T-H-E-R? Yeah. I might be totally wrong about this, but I think that's one of those things. It's like miasma that scientists used to think was like this weird gas that linked worlds and people and things together. It's like humors or something like that. So I don't think aether's a thing, although ether is a chemical that can put you under. That's what it is. Or in Magic the Gathering, it's a form of person or it's a people, and you can use it to power your artifacts. Anyway, what's next?
From Justin Hendricks, could someone have extra arms and control them like Doc Ock?
The really cool thing about the human brain, I mean, it's not the only cool thing, but the cool thing about the human brain is that it is incredibly, be careful how you draw this. It is incredibly plastic, meaning that it can rewire itself to learn new tasks that it hasn't been accustomed to. So in patients, for example, that have been completely paralyzed from the neck down, we have been able to link up systems, wires to their brain that go to something like robotic arms. And you may think that, wow, how would a human brain evolved over millions of years even have the slightest idea of how to interface with something that was invented in the last 50 years? But what we find is in a matter of a few days or weeks, the human brain learns to control robotic limbs through impulses alone. And we've done the same thing with chimps and other apes. That the brain is plastic enough to rewire itself to interface with technology that is 1,000,000 years ahead of its time, relatively speaking, which I think is incredible. So, could you ever be like a Doc Ock? the technology that we have right now isn't nearly as nimble. The snake-like arms, we don't have those that are super strong and super fast and have a mind of their own. But we have proven that you can interface the human brain with machine arms, and it can work, and way quicker than you think. What's next?
From Fra Anto, what would happen to technology if Earth inverted its magnetic poles right now?
I don't know. I don't know. I'm not a big conspiracy theorist. In fact, there's not a single conspiracy theory that's ever been proven true that's been very popular. But I don't know what would happen if the magnetic poles reversed. I'm gonna guess nothing much. The directionality of the magnetic field isn't as important as having a magnetic field. If the Earth's magnetic field went away, like if its core stopped spinning, then the solar wind coming in from the sun at us at all times, coming in screaming in, I think it's something like 1,000,000 miles per hour, would completely irradiate the surface of the Earth and everything would be dead. So worry about affecting the climate and how our atmosphere interacts with the rest of space more so than the magnetic poles reversing. I don't think it's a pressing problem. But what do I know? I'm not in a disaster movie. I kind of look like that guy who'd be like, no, you gotta listen to me. Look, the magnetic poles are gonna reverse. I'm John Cusack. What's next?
From John Trey Henderson.
Oh, I thought it was gonna be John Cusack for a second.
That'd be cool.
That would have been cool. Hey, what's serendipity probability-wise? Shut up, John. What's next?
Got him.
Wait, was he in that movie? Serendipity? Judges? He was, right? Nailed it. What's next?
What kind of forces would Static Shock have to use to fly on a trash can lid manhole cover?
Yeah, I've been wanting to get to Static Shock and his superpowers for a while. I think it would be something similar to ionocraft, and how ionocraft are just little, well, they have to be really, really light because we don't have power sources that are very, very light. But what ionocraft do is they use very strong electrical forces. They put a lot of volts into them. And, oh, that's gonna be over my face. And they pump these ionocraft full of electricity, and that ionizes the air around the craft, which has the effect of bumping air molecules into each other. And when that happens, air starts to move, and there's a downward thrust that forces the craft upwards. Now, a trash can lid is solid, and so you wouldn't have air moving through it. But if Static Shock had complete control over electromagnetic forces, I could see a situation where it's a little bit different, where it's coming in underneath and out and providing a downward thrust. Like he's ionizing air to come in from the sides, push up, and transfer the air's momentum to the lid. But how many volts you would need to do that? In the millions, at least, probably. Hey, future episode maybe? What's next?
From Shirana Haito.
I'm running out of space.
Sorry. Kyle, what do you think about the latest episode of The Expanse, Delta 5, or Delta V?
It's Delta V.
Regarding a certain physics-inspired scene.
Heck yeah! I watched Delta V last night of The Expanse. If you're not watching The Expanse, you should watch it right now and watch it live because people are trying to save it and get Amazon to buy it, and it's a fantastic show. And in about an hour's time, I will be moderating a Science of the Expanse panel at the International Space Developers Conference here in Los Angeles, California. So yeah, I'm kind of into The Expanse. But what Delta V means, and rocket scientists use the term Delta V a lot. They use it when they want to describe how much delta just signifies a change in something. So they use Delta V a lot when they want to show how much change in velocity, change in V, some engine or some kind of craft can produce. So a good engine can produce a lot of change in velocity, which is an acceleration over time. No, if you change velocity over time, it's a good acceleration. So a good change in velocity, it can change how you maneuver through space. Now, most shows, I won't spoil anything, but most shows will have a spacecraft going crazy, crazy fast and then stop, and then they're there. In Star Wars, they go to hyperspace and then stop, like this. Or in Star Trek, they do more or less the same thing, where they're going, at even impulse speed and then stopping, and then going normal speed. Most shows don't consider what would happen if you were going really, really fast and then stop really, really quickly. The Expanse is one of those shows that considers exactly what happens when you stop too quickly. And the results are exactly what I've always said on this show, where you would turn into basically paste. And if you want to see that on the big screen, watch The Expanse. And just watch it in general. It is my favorite show on TV. And the science is awesome in it. There's so many examples of cool stuff. Good, yeah, I mean, it's good priming. I'm going to be talking about this in front of Jeff Bezos in an hour. Literally. He seems like a smart guy. What's next?
From Science with Steph.
Hey, Steph.
Does Juggernaut have a very high mass or high velocity to gain such an unstoppable momentum?
I don't know. Juggernaut is one of those weird problems like Thor's hammer, where is the extra mass coming from to give him unstoppable or unliftable something? The Juggernaut supposedly has an unstoppable amount of momentum, which is just mass times velocity. So just like you said, Steph, one of these variables then has to change. It is either he's gaining more mass or he's gaining more velocity. And you see that he can't run arbitrarily fast. He can kind of I'm the Juggernaut, female dog. Like he can't run at any speed like the Flash can. So you're right, mass has to change. How would Juggernaut's mass be changing? I don't know. There's not really a way to do that in this universe without manipulating energy in some way. If he was going very close to the speed of light, his body would act as though it is getting more mass, even though it's not adding any more particles to it. It would affect the world around it like it has more momentum. But aside from that, I don't know. The other case, the other possibility is that the Juggernaut is just so dang dense. You see in Deadpool 2, sorry, the movie's been out for a little while. Let's just say, never mind. The Juggernaut has been shot before, and the bullets just bounce off his naked body, which means that he's probably hyperdense or something like it. And if you were hyperdense already, then you solve this mass problem, and you might be able to go through a wall. But I'd have to do that math. Yeah. What's next?
From Chris Mayers, would you ever get a haircut?
Yeah. Yeah, I get a haircut. I do this, look, there's I wish it was different. I wish there were not as many main science communicators on YouTube and on TV that look like me, a skinny white guy. We need diversity in science communication. That being said, there's a lot of skinny white guys on YouTube. If I cut my hair, I would look just like Veritasium, just like It's Okay to Be Smart, just like Vsauce 3, who I already get compared to. So I kept the hair because it's at least something distinguishing. And I do whatever I can behind the scenes, whether it's panels or looking into possible futures of this show, to increase the amount of diversity in this space. I don't want to look like everyone else, and I don't want everyone else who enters this space from now on. I don't want everyone to look the same. Let's encourage diversity in this space if we can. That's a weird way to link my haircut and diversity, but I think scientists shouldn't just look like that white guy with short hair and a lab coat. It's time for something new. And those people are everywhere. We just have to give them the platform. What's next?
Last question.
Last question.
From someone.
I got to get to that panel.
Do we know all the elements of the periodic table?
Do we know all the elements in the periodic table? Ooh, I'm not an expert, so, but I believe that we have found, or think we have found, most of the elements that are within the stable range, this island of stability, as they call it in your old chemistry class. That means atoms that have a certain composition so that they won't be radioactive and decay too quickly. I think you could probably make higher and higher number elements, like way beyond in the 150s and stuff like that, but they would decay through nuclear reactions, but they would decay faster than that. And so, is it really an element? Yes, but it's not an element like iron is an element. So, have we found every element? I think we're close. I think the better question is, can we create an unlimited number of elements? And to that, I say, I do not know. And that is all the time. It's good to say you don't know sometimes. You know your limits. I certainly do. It's this. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Because Science Live. Make sure to tune in next week where we have a new vlog, a new episode, another live stream, and leave me your comments and questions and corrections and all that good stuff on this channel on youtube.com/becausescience. You can also go to facebook.com/becausescience and at becausescience on Instagram and Twitter. And user Dave Face has also made a subreddit for all things me and this, but it's pretty, he did a good job. So it's R. Kyle Hill, and I might be jumping in there every once in a while. So have a great long weekend if you're watching in the States, but have a great weekend regardless, and be nice to each other, because this is all we have.